If an actual hulking, glowing angel, showed up in your bedroom tonight to tell you that God was about to answer your most urgent prayer, would you believe it? Luke's account of Jesus' life starts 30 years before anyone has ever heard of Jesus, with some of his distant relatives. The couple involved here are religious. They've spent their whole lives praying and basically doing all the right things. The husband, Zechariah, is even a religious professional. But they've struggled to get pregnant, and after decades of trying, it's clear it isn't happening. And then one day near the end of his career, Zechariah's name gets drawn to light the incense in the temple. Lighting incense meant you got to go into this tiny room at the center of the temple where no one was normally allowed to go. People believed that this room was the closest you could get to God on earth. A priest only got to go in maybe once in his life if he was lucky. So there stands Zechariah alone in this tiny room, and he turns and he sees an angel. He probably jumped out of his skin. The angel announces that Zechariah and his wife are going to have a son, who will have an important job of waking many people up to God. And Zechariah goes, prove it. There's something funny about this. Zechariah is a priest. Faith is literally his job. And he's being visited by an angel in the holiest place on earth. What more proof could he be looking for? A binky appearing on the altar? You can almost hear Gabriel's wing feathers getting ruffled. Are you kidding me with this? I'm Gabriel. I'm one of God's top 3 most famous guys for sure. And you think I'm here for what? A practical joke? It's funny, but I also kind of get where Zechariah's coming from. I mean, he and his wife have been praying to get pregnant for decades now. If God was going to answer their prayers, wouldn't it have happened a long time ago? Most of Zechariah's neighbors could have identified with that feeling. Their country was currently under occupation, and they'd been praying for centuries that God would rescue them. But nothing had changed except which empire owned them. By this point, a whole lot of people had concluded that either God wasn't real or God wasn't coming. Their best options were either to make bank working for their oppressors, or maybe start stockpiling swords and planning their Braveheart moment. I've had similar thoughts myself. Maybe you have too. If God was real or present or involved, wouldn't the world's problems have been solved yesterday? If God was going to answer my prayers, wouldn't it have happened already? What's even the point of continuing to hope? Why would tomorrow be any different? They're fair questions. But here's the thing. I also know so many stories of a day when something changed. I know a woman who was dying of cancer who went in for a last scan and found it gone. An atheist who'd never been to church in his life was getting out of bed one day when he heard a voice out of nowhere calling his name. I spent 15 years of my life trying to break free of a place I really felt stuck, and nothing, the books, the experts, the prayers, seemed to help. Then one day I was walking through my living room when I felt this presence that felt like sunlight filling the room. And I felt the lie that had trapped me just suddenly break. My life hasn't been the same since. Why here? Why now? Why this time? I don't know how it works. I don't know why it often doesn't seem to happen when we want it. Zechariah didn't know either. Neither did the Israelites who were suffering under Rome. What I do know from my experience, and what Zechariah and Elizabeth learned from theirs, is that sometimes it just happens. Sometimes God breaks in at the moment you least expect to bring new possibilities into the world. Bringing something out of nothing is kind of God's thing, and it always has been. So what I'd say to you today is, whatever you do, just don't give up. Don't stop hoping or praying or searching, because any day can be the day that everything changes. And almost no one ever sees the page turn that matters coming. Let's read the story in Luke 1, 5-25. When Herod was king of Judea, there was a Jewish priest named Zechariah. He was a member of the priestly order of Abijah, and his wife Elizabeth was also from the priestly line of Aaron. Zechariah and Elizabeth were righteous in God's eyes, careful to obey all the Lord's commandments and regulations. They had no children because Elizabeth was unable to conceive, and they were both very old. One day Zechariah was serving God in the temple, for his order was on duty that week. As was the custom of the priests, he was chosen by lot to enter the sanctuary of the Lord and burn incense. While the incense was being burned, a great crowd stood outside praying. When Zechariah was in the sanctuary, an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right of the incense altar. Zechariah was shaken and overwhelmed with fear when he saw him. But the angel said, "Don't be afraid, Zechariah. God has heard your prayer. Your wife Elizabeth will give you a son, and you are to name him John. You will have great joy and gladness, and maybe many will rejoice at his birth, for he will be great in the eyes of the Lord. He must never touch wine or other alcoholic drinks. He will be filled with the Holy Spirit, even before his birth. And he will turn many Israelites to the Lord their God. He will be a man with the spirit and power of Elijah. He will prepare the people for the coming of the Lord. He will turn the hearts of fathers to their children, and he will cause those who are rebellious to accept the wisdom of the godly. Zechariah said to the angel, "How can I be sure this will happen? I'm an old man now, and my wife is also well along in years." The angel said, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the very presence of God. It was he who sent me to you to bring you this good news. But now, since you didn't believe what I've said, you will be silent and unable to speak until the child is born, for my words will certainly be fulfilled at the proper time." Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah to come out of the sanctuary, wondering why he was taking so long. When he finally did come out, he couldn't speak to them. Then they realized from his gestures and his silence that he must have seen a vision in the sanctuary. When Zechariah's week of service in the temple was over, he returned home. Soon afterward, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant and went into seclusion for 5 months. "How kind the Lord is," she exclaimed. "He has taken away my disgrace of having no children." My name is Megan Larissa Good, and I've been studying for the Bible for decades now and working as a pastor, author, and professor. But most of all, I love Jesus and want to see more of him in my life and in the world. If you want to join the conversation with me, look for the Luke 1 post at patreon.com/Jesus Collective Community. Thanks for spending 8 minutes in Luke with me. See you next time.